we have the first ever Bazaar patch, including patch notes, kind of, so let's dive into them.
You should know, I'm a bit of a legend on Pelago.
So here are our patch notes. They are just highlights, there's no very specifics, but we'll see them as soon as we can get into game. At the time of recording, the servers are down, hence why I'm recording a video for you guys, and we don't have any gameplay of the new update. So I don't know the exact details of this, and only time will tell as to how good these changes have been, but these are the general direction they're going on. So probably the biggest meta build that most people had a problem with was the Pygmalion Scraper build with Skyscraper and Space Scraper. They both had their scaling reduced and cooldowns increased. To me, that suggests that as you get them into higher tiers, they're not going to become quintuple and quadruple, etc. They're going to remain at triple or double value. Like they were back in the alpha or friends and family. And the big one, the one that really matters here, is that stained glass window is no longer bugged. It now only doubles the value of the item to the right as well. So that's going to drastically reduce the power potential of the Pygmalion Scraper build. The Scraper build will probably still exist. They've not completely removed it. And depending on the numbers, they've not completely nerfed it into the ground. Like even a 6 or 7 second cooldown Space Scraper can go crazy, or Skyscraper even, can go crazy with the right build. So, you've got to actually build around it now, rather than just lucking out and finding the right couple of items you need in the late game and pivoting straight away. So, definitely can still play with it. Well, I assume you can still play with it, but definitely nerfed and should be in a much better place. Dam, however, has been pretty much driven into the ground. Dam no longer destroys large and medium items. Instead, it now destroys all enemy small items and slows all enemy medium items. Considering that's the only change, it still destroys itself. At least as I'm reading these patch notes, Dam definitely sounds a lot worse, and I can understand why. It's a funny item to use yourself, but to get used on you regularly if it's in the meta, devastating. So Dam now sits in a quite nice space where it will remain a sort of small item meta counter. Like if a small item meta explodes after this, you can look to Dam to shut it back down. No changes to the cooldown though, which is something that I anticipated, so we got that one wrong. One that we did get right though, and extends into the next one as well, is that Shipwreck starts at Diamond tier, there is no Gold tier, and is only +1 multicast, and the same is true of Robotics Factory. This is how they were in the Alpha, Friends and Family. For the beta version, they brought them down to Gold tier at Multicast 1 and gave them a Diamond tier at Multicast 2. That proved to be too strong. So they've now been toned down quite a bit. This is exactly the change I wanted to see. I still think they'll see some play, although only in very specific builds. Throwing knives got the cooldown, or got the change that a lot of you wanted to see. I wanted to see an internal cooldown. Similar to poison and burn items, but they didn't get that. Instead, throwing knives simply now requires a different item to crit for its use trigger. So you absolutely can still do a throwing knives build. You just now need a repeater to trigger the throwing knives, the repeater to crit to trigger throwing knives, and you'll have your constant cycle going then. To me, that means that one's probably not nerfed quite as hard. You can still definitely play that build, but now you need not only daggers, but you need repeater for that instant kill build. It's going to be a lot harder to force. Interesting to see what becomes of it. Blunderbuss saw a much larger change. It now charges instead of uses on burn, but deals more damage. I actually quite like this. I like a lot of the charges items. Weak point detector is one that comes to mind. So I'm actually very happy to see this Blunderbuss change, and I'm looking forward to using this. This could be a fun item to play around with, especially with the increased damage. Swashbuckle probably has to be one of the biggest changes of this patch and might go a little slept on. Its damage bonus scaling no longer increases with its tier. What this means is the extra damage per crit it gives to the items either side of it isn't going to skyrocket into, into the stratosphere. It's going to remain a comfortable level. It's still going to be a useful sort of crit adjacency item, but it's not going to be massively better than the spyglass or telescope, whatever it's called, and the sextant. Swashbuckle, I think, I don't even think, asking or talking to the pros, is the core item, the big item you need to pick up for your crit build. So with that being nerfed, we'll definitely see a reduction in it, and with throwing knives being altered and Blunderbuss being changed, we're definitely going to see a reduction in throwing knife builds. It's definitely going to require a lot more pieces to come together, and it's not going to be so monotone. You're not just going to have one build to rule them all. There are going to be lots of different ways of running it, hopefully more like what we expected for the Bazaar. Finally, a few smaller changes. Globe enchantment timings have been updated to start of fight instead of start of day. Permanent buffs, so instead of a permanent start of day thing and then you can eventually set it, it'll be a start of fight thing. That one didn't necessarily come up for me. I didn't see that, but maybe that was getting abused somewhere. Let me know in the comments if you've seen that one. Vanessa Amulet enchantment timings also updated to be start of fight instead of use on use trigger. This is a bit of a shame. I was actually using this myself. It was very fun, but I guess it was a little bit broken for a small item to have that wide of an effect. If you've got an icy Vanessa's Amulet, suddenly all of your items were freezing. So incredibly strong there. Mamasaur, renamed from Dionysus, which honestly, that might be the biggest change of the patch because Mamasaur is much better. This can no longer destroy large items, so a similar treatment to Dam. It was a lot slower, a lot harder to pull off, so I'm glad that it can still destroy mediums. But your large items are now safe, which is fine because they're very sacrificial in the first place to have a large item on your build. The change that's going to hurt me the most is the docks. As soon as I learned that the docks would offer you only golden tool skills, I basically went there every single time. The docks no longer offer skills, but now instead offer items. It's still going to be good. It still, I hope, gives you 2 gold and an item, so it's a very good economy option. But the skills were just a little bit too broken, so they've changed that one up. That's a shame. That was one of my favorite ones from the alpha as well. So that one's gone. I'm gonna have to find my new way, a new way of picking up my skills early. Maybe I finally have to go to the bronze skill merchant. They've also adjusted some of the dually cores to be less damage core specific. There are more damage cores than anything else, but there are a lot of dually skills that specifically require you to have that going. So I'm actually very interested to see this. This might be. I said it was the Swashbuckle, but this might actually be the most sleeper of the balance patch notes. Depending on what they've changed this to, this could see Dooley skyrocket in popularity and viability. Dooley was already looking pretty good. Pierre Conditioner build looks pretty good. The shielding build, the force field, I've been having a lot of fun with and a lot of success with. So I think Dooley is definitely looking good depending on these skill changes. There were also a lot of other general fixes and many other various smaller fixes and adjustments. So, I mean, we're going to have to dive in and see. But for more of that, gameplay guides and other news, you know what to do.